Looks like we're live.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. It's Jason here from Black Rifle TD. I'm over here with a New Zealand gun owner, as I was promising you guys. What is your name?
Aiden, my name's Aiden.
Aiden. Sorry,
Yes.
I didn't even know. I didn't even ask you what your name was before I started talking to you. How you doing?
I'm going all good. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Pretty good. And today we're gonna be talking with him about. Uh, I'm a little bit kind of late to the party, but we'll be talking about what their prime minister pretty much shoved through in the current situation with COVID and gun laws and all that stuff. We'll be going through that today for you guys. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself, and I guess if you're comfortable with it, what kind of firearms that you currently or had.
So, I'm only recently out of high school. I've finished all of my year 13, they call it over here, done all of that, got my university entrance. Um, and at the moment, I'm just seeking employment. Um, and I wasn't personally affected by the whole buyback scheme or confiscation scheme, as most people in New Zealand like to call it.
Buyback.
Um, I personally have uh, bolt action rifles. I sort of like the feeling of pulling back a bolt when you're sitting down. And I do have a semi automatic shotgun. Um, so before the new laws were pushed through, we had a magazine capacity for semi automatic firearms on an A category license
7 rounds was it?
of, of 7 rounds per
It's such an odd
magazine.
number. Even I remember that.
And after the new laws got all rushed through, we had 5 rounds. And it went for rimfire cartridges. It was 15 rounds, and that went down to 10 rounds.
Hmm. Because
Um,
those extra
so
5 rounds, man, they're just.
I don't know how many lives you're going to save with that, but that's not up to me. I'm not making the laws. Um, and we used to have something called the E category firearms license, and that would allow competition shooters and pest control companies to have larger magazine capacities. So you could have basically whatever capacity firearm magazine that you would like. So a lot of three-gun competition um, rifle owners and shotgun owners aren't able to compete in their sport competitively anymore because they can't even own the firearms properly to use it.
So they can't store it at a firearms range.
No, they can't. They can't do anything. They're not even. No one's allowed to own them.
So not even a range could have it, because that's how we could
No.
have full auto here. Is because
Yes.
like that's how
So
you can go to Las Vegas and have full autos because the ranges have the FFL and all that.
yeah. So even when we were the E category license holders had the firearms, only the people licensed could shoot them. So they couldn't supervise anyone and let them shoot the firearms, which was an interesting rule. Where we have B category, which is the pistol endorsement, where anybody under the supervision of a B endorsed license holder is able to shoot, but we're only allowed to shoot pistols on a range in New Zealand.
Okay. So I guess let's go ahead and go into. I guess it's not more. I guess more gun related. It's more just New Zealand. Like what is your Bill of Rights? Like, do you have like a? You obviously don't have a Second Amendment, and I guess you don't really have much of a First Amendment either. I guess what is your Bill of Rights and how does that work?
So it's the 1990 New Zealand Bill of Rights Act, and it did go through with quite a majority of people supporting it. I'm just going to. So the New Zealand Bill of Rights covers the right not to be deprived of life, the right not to be subjected to torture, scientific experience, able to refuse your medical treatment, right to vote, freedom of religious thought, conscience, expression, religious beliefs, peaceful assemblies, association, movement, discrimination. Um, you're also protected against unreasonable search and seizures.
Mm.
Um,
So basically, like a Fourth Amendment.
I'm not sure of the American laws, so if that's your equivalent, that I would assume so. We have the right to justice. Everyone has the right to a fair trial in New Zealand, which is not something that's quite been happening at the moment, which is interesting.
Same
Maybe we'll
here.
talk about that later, but and other rights and freedoms that are not to be affected. So this section here is quite important, where an existing right or freedom cannot be removed by another law. So if you've got a right to freedom of religion in the Bill of Rights, and the government makes a bill saying you're not allowed to be religious, then under the New Zealand Bill of Rights, that second law is null and void.
What would be the process of do you have would you take it to court to make that a law non void?
Well, what would probably happen if it did? It shouldn't technically be pushed through by the Governor General, but if it did, the New Zealand people doesn't have the right to actually protest against the Governor General directly, which is quite interesting. Parliament did a bit of a sneaky thing back in the 90s, I do believe, and they made it so the public wasn't able to freely protest to the Governor General. So if you want to protest, you've got to do it through your MPs.
What is an MP?
So an MP is your member of Parliament. So each electorate or zone region around New Zealand has their own MP, and they form up our Parliament.
I thought it stood for military police for a second. I didn't know what that meant.
Well, sometimes. So if somebody was to have a problem with it, they would most likely raise it to their MP, and the MP would bring that up in Parliament, would be the ideal situation. And if that didn't happen properly, then yes, people can they can't really take the government to court, but they can have the courts investigate. I do believe
So how would that
work? How it works.
Okay.
So if I'm remembering this all correctly, I may be wrong, but there is a committee set somewhere in Parliament to basically investigate these things, and if it's wrong, then laws will have to be repealed.
Okay, so that's actually, in a way, that's actually better than what we have to do here. Here, we just have to file lawsuits. You have to throw money at it. That's now that I think that actually might be better.
Within New Zealand, it's very hard to actually sue someone. So,
oof, man, that'd be nice.
So in New Zealand, we've got something called ACC, which is what we have in place that pays for like medical bills and loss of wages and stuff like that. So if somebody hits you with their car and you're not able to work or you're injured, then ACC pays for that, and you can't actually sue somebody saying, well, you caused this amount of damage to, for medical costs. You can't sue someone for medical costs in New Zealand.
Well, here that would put all half of the lawyers out of business. That's
Well,
what they do.
We have a free healthcare system over here, which is paid by, well, I say free, but it's paid for by the taxpayer. So that makes it a little bit easier. But yeah, ACC is put in place so people can't be sued for those sort of things. However, you can sue for personal damages. So if somebody does crash into you and they don't have insurance, you can sue them for the damages to your property.
Well, usually they don't have any money, so that's why they don't have a license.
or the insurance. So we've got licensing and insurance is a little different over here than over there, I do believe.
No, here they just hand that stuff out like candy. I think in Georgia they were actually going to let younger kids drive even without having to go through driver's ed or anything. They were just going to give them a license to drive.
Well, in New Zealand, at the age of 16, you can get your learner's license, and then
Same
6
here.
months in, you can go for a restricted license, which means you can drive by yourself but without passengers unless they're licensed themselves.
Yeah, it's the same here. It's a permit.
But you also can't drive between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. that way.
Yeah. It's actually it seems like what we had when I got my permit. It was a lot like that. I was supposed to have an adult all the time. So I guess let's go into our next question. It's, I guess, if whatever you're comfortable with, you don't have to answer this one, but could you explain what a censorship chief is? I don't know if I spelt that correctly, but it looked right.
So the chief censor is the chief executive officer and chairperson of the Office of Film and Literature Classification, according to the Wikipedia article. So I assume, are you talking about the manifesto? Is that what you're pushing into, or?
Well, I don't really want to
So
go into that if you don't want to talk about it. It's just more. That was just something that I couldn't quite figure out. Nobody here could figure out how you guys were able to put people in jail for simply possessing the
yes,
manifesto.
so
We're not going to go into what it said or any of that. It
yeah,
was just more the process.
just talking strictly from a legal point of view.
Yes.
So back when the Christchurch shooter published his manifesto, a lot of people, and even the live streamed footage, the chief, the censorship chief, as you call him, basically said that people aren't supposed to have that in their possession, which is interesting because, that, as I was saying before, that does go against the Bill of Rights, because everybody in New Zealand has the right to seek out any information, seek and possess any information that they want. So it's quite interesting how they were able to push that through Parliament and get people arrested over possessing these things.
Was that Ardern, whatever that weird woman is? Is that something her edict, or did Parliament push that through?
So, so whoever was in charge of, I'll find a name for you. I can't remember the names off the top of my head. So the manifest. So yeah. So it was by the chief censor, is what the New Zealand people are calling it. Sent out the order for it to be banned. So I do believe that's in a separate area of Jacinda Ardern and the rest of Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
And
So I shouldn't be blaming her.
Well, you can if you like, but
she can't get me.
Yeah, this is a bit of a different situation there. But as far as I'm aware, Jacinda Ardern did agree with it being censored and banned, and she seemed to have gotten the public confidence and having the public wanting it. So with the media over here, the media would have talked about why it should be banned and how great it is that it's been banned.
Yeah, it was the same here too. Even though we have that pesky First Amendment getting in the way.
Yes, it's a terrible thing, isn't it?
Well, they already are pushing that here. I mean, trying to get rid of our First Amendment, so it doesn't really surprise me.
Yes. What's that quote? The Second Amendment exists for when you try to take the First Amendment away. It's quite an interesting quote. You can't, you have firearms over there in case of tyranny, and also you're able to use them for self-defense. But over here, if you even suggest that you have a firearm for self-defense, it's ground to have your license revoked.
Sorry about that. What is the
That's
general
illegal.
attitude of gun ownership?
Well, the main majority of people in New Zealand is a very agricultural country in general. So the general population seems to think that farmers should be able to have firearms for pest control. A lot of people seem to think that sports shooting isn't a legitimate reason to own a firearm, which is why the
Why they
ban
didn't get
got
that
so much
carved out?
support from the general public. Not the firearms lobby, but from the general public. The New Zealand police here do not carry firearms.
Yeah, I saw that. I follow their
So,
YouTube channel.
My father was a police officer in New South Wales, Australia.
Appreciate his service.
And he thinks it's absolutely crazy that the police here don't carry firearms. He thinks it's
I appreciate his service.
And
How does that work exactly? I never could figure. Nobody here can figure out why they do that.
Why they don't carry guns?
Yeah, why do they leave it in their trunk? That doesn't do them any good there.
Well, basically, what they want to be able to do is so that if a criminal does have a weapon or something, what they really want to be able to do is say, "Sir, stop! I just got to get to my trunk. I'll be back in 5 minutes."
Yeah, 5 minutes. I had to drive back to the station.
And they're hoping that the criminal will escape and hurt someone else and not them during that time period. So I think that's possibly their main ideology. I'm not sure.
What? It doesn't even make any sense.
So they do carry tasers and OC spray, which is the pepper capsicum spray. when you've got some people who are on these hard drugs, you've seen videos. Sometimes tasers are not effective.
They don't wear body cameras, do they?
Some of them do.
Okay,
but
that's
not
how you
all
don't.
of them.
That's where most of the footage comes from here.
They also don't wear bulletproof vests.
What?
They wear stab-proof vests, but not
What does it
bulletproof
do me
vests.
any good?
So, criminals don't have firearms in New Zealand, according to the government. So, because all criminals follow the law.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So really, people shouldn't be having firearms, which means there's no need.
No, you wouldn't have a police then, would you?
No. Basically, their idea is if they believe that if the police are carrying guns, that will frighten the public.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to avoid.
Man, I don't know what to say, but I wouldn't want to work in that kind of an environment. That's crazy. I mean, I feel bad for a lot of those guys. I'm sure they're decent people. I don't want anyone to think I'm dogging on them, but it's just, golly, what are they thinking?
So we do have a squad called the Armed Defenders Squad, and they're the ones that drive around in the big black trucks with their vests and their M4 Bushmasters. So if there is an incident involving a firearm, they are the ones who get called out. So where I'm from, the nearest station that has an Armed Defenders Squad is about 20 minutes away. So if there's a firearms incident where I'm living, then it takes probably 15 minutes to actually get the Armed Defenders Squad out here to be able to take control of the situation.
I guess because we go back to our question, I'm sorry about that.
Yep. Bit of a sidetrack.
Sorry about that. My fault.
There are probably about 200,000 plus licensed firearm owners in New Zealand. And I know there's a majority, I'd probably say about 95%, who were highly against the law change. And so that shows the general attitude towards the firearms with the firearms owners. And a lot of people I've talked to who aren't firearms owners don't seem to have a huge problem with me or anyone else owning firearms, as long as they're responsible and as long as they're vetted by the police properly and that they're not psychopaths or crazy or things like that. So the general consensus, at least from where I am, is that most of them are accepting. But if you move to places such as Auckland or Christchurch, you'll probably find different sort of ideas about that from the general public.
Yeah, Auckland seems like a crazy place to be. I don't know if I'd want to live there. I guess let's go into our next question. What kind of guns can you guys have that we can't?
Ooh. Probably none, to be honest. We can't have full auto.
We can't either.
Yeah, probably none. I think you guys have a lot more. You guys have a lot more freedoms when it comes to
temporary
buying choices than we do.
Temporary freedom.
Yeah. So.
What about suppressors? You were telling me you could get those easier. What was the process of getting that?
Walk into the gun shop and buy one.
I want that one. That's pretty awesome, actually.
So, what was interesting is that the price of a suppressor over here is the price of your NFA tax to get a suppressor over there. So for about $200 American, you can buy a suppressor over here, which is 350 New Zealand dollars. And you quite literally walk into the shop and you buy one off the shelf.
What kind of licensing do you need for that?
None.
Okay.
It's a non-restricted item. You don't even need a firearms license to buy one.
That's pretty nice, actually, man. People would give an arm and a leg for one of that.
Yeah.
Why did you think that do you think that they've been going after that ability to do that?
Well, when the process went through, when the Parliament was trying to push through the law, one of the original amendments was banning of suppressors,
Hmm.
because that's what Australia did. Basically, they copied and pasted what Australia did into a New Zealand law and tried to push that through. But
They
thankfully,
had like, what was it? They had the police come and try to help write the laws. Was it?
the police demonstrated the firearms and stuff. They sat down in front of the committee and showed them what firearms were being banned and stuff like that.
So basically, if it was black and it looked scary.
Pretty much, yeah. That's
Wow.
you see the argument of the AR-15 versus the Ruger M. What is it? The Mini 14.
Yeah,
And
that's banned in Canada, by the way. I talked to someone, like a gun over there, and they
yeah,
said they banned it.
I heard
I was
that
like,
in the
what?
interview.
Why? Oh, you watched it?
Yes.
I
So
appreciate
it's
that.
just because it's black and scary. And that's seems to be what the government wanted to ban, because it seems to be a feel-good law.
Of course.
So
Same here.
it was just there to try and make the public feel better. Not I don't believe there was much thought on public safety when the law got pushed through. I think it was just to make them feel better.
No, usually a lot of this stuff, it usually is all about power, unfortunately. So I guess let's go into our next one. How much regulation power does the police have?
So the New Zealand police are the ones who issue firearms licenses. This is what a New Zealand firearms license actually looks like. Where's the camera? There we
Make
go.
sure I hide your personal information, of course.
Yeah,
There you
got
go.
a bit of tape on that. So we just get given this firearms, and here's the endorsement section. I can't even figure out where the camera is. And that you have to apply to the police with a separate form to apply for an endorsement. So if you were to get pistols, you have to go through a process at the range where you have to shoot 12 pistol shoots within 6 months before you're allowed to apply for a B category endorsement.
Okay.
And then that's for the B cat, and then there's a C cat, which is a collector's license, which again you have to apply to the police for, and there's a whole bunch of rules about who can get a collector's license.
I think I actually.
Yep, there we go.
Yes, that's basically what it looks like.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. Yeah, so you see in the endorsement section that the B cat, the C cat, and the E, which doesn't exist anymore, the military style semi-automatic weapons, they do not. That endorsement does not exist. That's what the government banned in their last set of laws.
Before. So what was it that made it get that e-endorsement? I know there were firearms that found themselves in that category. What was it? What did it take to be within that E category?
So you had to prove that you had it for sport,
Mhm.
or you had to be a employee of a licensed pest control company who needed those types of weapons. So that was highly regulated, and there was different vettings. And if I recall correctly, you had to reapply every 2 years, if that's right. I think that's right. Don't quote me on it, but I do believe it was. I think you had to reapply more often if you had an endorsement.
What did they like? How did guns find themselves in that category? Like, what were the characteristics to make it a MSSA?
So it was any semi-automatic firearm over the 7-round count capacity for centerfire, and over 15 rounds rimfire. So it really was to do with the magazine capacity, but there was other things about like folding stocks.
Ooh, man, those folding stocks, man, those are.
So yeah, there was an issue with folding stocks, and I do believe that you had to have a MSSA license to have a folding stock on your
Oh
firearm.
man, there's too much comfort, folding that stock.
Yeah, I think the reason they wanted to do that is, I suppose, so you couldn't conceal it as easy.
Yeah, there's the same excuses they pull here. What
Yeah.
about the grip, like the pistol grip? What did it?
Yeah, pistol grips as well were actually under that. I can just search it up, but I do believe pistol grips, if it was a rimfire, a semi-automatic which had a pistol grip that made it a restricted weapon.
Yeah, comfort, can't have that. What
Um,
kind of firearms that were banned? Like, was it just like all semi-automatic, just flat out?
So basically, the ban was on magazines. So it really depends on what magazine it has. So now ARs have to have I think it's basically like California actually. They have to have one
Yeah.
of those straight magazine wells, so you can't put a banana clip in it.
Man, I don't know what to say. They can have detachable magazines. They actually got their they for a week they were actually able to buy their higher capacity magazines there. So I don't know if you heard about that, but
No,
so you can't even take the magazine out. It has to be welded onto
no,
the.
you can have the magazine out, but you're not allowed to. There's supposed to be a way to prevent you from having a higher capacity magazine inserted.
Hmm.
I'm no gunsmith, so I can't go into the
No, I'm
details of
not. I'm not an
how
expert
that
either.
happens. But
Hmm.
yeah, so that's what they wanted done.
Hmm.
So if you did have a high capacity taking firearm, that you could get it modified before the confiscation started or ended. And if you had that modified by a gunsmith, then you didn't have to hand it in.
Hmm. So could you convert it over to a pump action?
Yes, so most people didn't convert them because it was quite difficult to get the parts over here.
They
But
have to import it
they
from
do
us,
now
weren't
have
they?
pump action. They do now have the pump action option.
Oh, there
No,
you
not
go.
pump
Yeah,
action.
yeah.
So we've got these 308s, which are a pump action there. You can see that there. That's all pump action. So they do have these now in stock. You can buy these now. Yeah, that's sort of what a lot of people have done to get away with it.
Yeah. How did they made there in your country, or are they importing them?
They're imported.
Okay. You're welcome.
That's right.
Yeah,
We have
yeah.
to rely on you guys for our firearms.
No problem. Always willing to look out for my buddies. So I guess what is because like when I was talking to the other in Canada, they can randomly come into your house and search your stuff. Is that true?
So yes and no. So when you have a firearms license, the police have the right to come and inspect your safe to make sure you have the ability to store your firearms correctly. So
What are the
they can come in
limitations
and
of what
say,
they can
"We're here to
see?
inspect your safe."
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Sorry, what?
What is the limitations? How far can they go? Like, can they walk into your bedroom and say, "What do you got in there?" Like, are they limited like
Technically, no.
particular area?
So everything like that is under the Search and Seizure Act. So they have to have reasonable belief that you have committed a crime or about to commit a crime before they come into your house like that, and they would need a warrant to be able to do that unless it was imminent, um, unless they believe that there was imminent danger. So
Hmm.
normally they come in and ask you if they're doing a routine safe inspection. They will ask you if it's a convenient time or when is a convenient time. If you get an ICE cop,
So they don't just pop in and say, "Hey, we're
yeah, they
coming
just come
in."
to the door, knock on the door, and say, "We're here for your routine safe inspection." Um,
Safe
and
inspection. God, that's creepy.
so they don't actually open. They're not allowed to record what firearms you have.
Hmm.
They're not allowed to record any serial numbers. We don't have a gun registry for general A category firearms. We do have a registry for pistols.
Of course.
Um, Got to keep. Yeah, that's another problem.
Yeah, I know. Canada has that same problem. I was talking to him, and he was sitting there saying oh, by the way, they're all registered. Well, gee.
We had a problem where a civilian police administrator leaked a list
I saw that. Yeah.
of firearms and addresses of where the pistols were located to the gangs. So the gangs had a shopping list
Whoa.
of where they could go to get pistols. And
Oh man.
hundreds and maybe even thousands of pistols were stolen.
Oh my goodness. Sorry, I had to let that sink in. Wow, that's. We
So
had a
recently, there was
newspaper in
another
New
leak.
York did something like that.
There was another leak in personal information with the firearm confiscation. So something went wrong with their website, and it was the personal information that people put in on the website was able to be leaked. So if somebody with a little bit of computer skills was to hack into the website, they again had a shopping list of where these now banned firearms are being stored until the police can come and collect them or be taken to a collection point.
Wow, I don't know what to say. Who designed that website?
The police.
Oh, come on now. That government was perfect. So they keep telling us. So you didn't participate in any of those buybacks?
Yes. No, I didn't participate in any of them personally. I
Mm-hmm.
do know plenty of people who had to hand in their firearms.
So what was the process like? Did you have to prove that you were the owner, or did you get money for it? How did that work?
So you did get money for it, but I had the stats here just a moment ago. The average price for a firearm that was handed in the police paid was about $300, which is again about probably under 200 US dollars.
Is it like for everything, or is it just like for
That's just
stuff
the
that didn't
average. That's
work?
the average price. So 5,700, 57,716 firearms were collected. 205,209 parts were collected, such as magazines and converters and stuff like that.
So they took that too?
Yeah, they took them too.
Man, such a waste. Could have sent that over here. I could have use for that.
So the highest amount paid for a prohibited weapon, they call it a unique prohibited item, was $25,000.
Mm-hmm.
The lowest paid amount was $21.
Must have been for something that didn't work. Was my guess.
Oh, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe they gave him an attitude and they said, "Here, $21."
And so the medium price amount that was paid was $300. Yeah, 63% of the semi-automatic firearms were valued at under $10,000. Bolt-action rifles with an 11 plus round capacity, valued at under $2,000, was 22%. Shotguns, pump actions, and non-detachable magazines, which had 6 plus cartridges, under $5,000, made up 9%. The semi-automatic shotguns were 4%. Shotguns with the detachable magazines was another 2%, and rifles. So that would be the rimfire ones, and all rifles which had 11 plus rounds with $2,000 was 2% again. So they really didn't pay
Shortchanged you guys.
that much. So according to one article that I read, that they were paying 95% of the value or less.
So they take advantage of
Some
you.
people claim that they got 20% of the value of the firearm.
No, I mean they shortchanged you, and I think it was also your ammo that they were able to the fact that they could just come and take it. What was that whole situation with your prime
So
minister?
there was talk about banning tracer rounds and armor piercing rounds, and I can't update you on the exact legal situation of what's happening there, because I didn't actually look into it, because that's not what type of ammunition that I use.
Mhm.
But when they were pushing through the laws, they were making some mistakes, and they were saying that you couldn't have steel shotgun ammunition,
They got in a hurry.
and within New Zealand you have to use steel shot to shoot ducks.
Hmm.
You're not allowed to use lead shot above a waterway. So they made a lot of mistakes, and they had to get pulled up and pulled up and pulled up, and there's still quite a few mistakes in there which eventually will have to be amended.
New York did the same thing. They had spelling errors and everything when they shoved through their. I don't know if you're aware of the SAFE Act. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. I'm not quite sure what it is.
It's basically the same thing what you guys went through. It's pretty much what it was. Fortunately, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah. That's wrong. I'm no lawyer, but that's wrong.
It was basically what I think. I'll see if you can read that. It was basically they took your. You guys took them to court, and it was pretty much. This is what the government pretty much said that we can pretty much take it if we want.
Yeah, that was the clause that they can make anything illegal by order of special counsel.
Mm-hmm.
So if they just turn around and say, "Yeah, this is banned now," that's banned. They can just do that,
Mm-hmm.
which is quite dangerous when you come to think about legislation. So
That's crazy. Have you heard of that case? Do you know where the
yeah,
where it is
yeah,
right now?
so basically, if the government forces something out of your possession, they're legally required to compensate you,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be animals or cars or firearms or even ammunition or parts. They are supposed to compensate you.
Is that what they
But
were trying to say? They weren't required for ammo.
that's what they were trying to say, that they didn't have to pay for it. I mean, I know
Wow.
there are people out here which have thousands and thousands of rounds, and I know a guy. I was at the range just before the laws were coming into effect, and he was sitting there with his AK, and he shot thousands of rounds. Just he said, "I'd rather shoot it myself and not enjoy shooting it than to have to just get rid of it."
So you guys could have AKs.
Yes, under the military style endorsement.
Canada couldn't have that.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked to him. He basically said they got rid of them because of movies. That was why. So that
That's
was
what
apparently
happened in
why.
Australia with silencers. The
Movies.
movie is depicted as completely blocking out the sound.
Nah, even though that's not how they work.
No.
So I guess I did have one more question, and then I was gonna move on to the next question. So do they make stuff up along as they go, or do they have to take it to the like? Do they have to go to the like legislatively? Like I've been reading that they just make stuff up along as they go. Is that true?
Well, with the Firearms Act that they pushed through, they quite literally copied and pasted what Australia did. Um, the people who were making the laws didn't understand what they were actually banning. So they could from that perspective, they were making stuff up because they were talking about things they had no understanding of.
Like the police, they were just making stuff up.
What I want to be careful here. I don't want to get in trouble, but
If you don't
it is
answer, that's fine.
it is quite possible that that's what they did. Cannot confirm nor deny.
All right, I'll leave it at that. I guess let's move on to the next one. Do you believe that they have a general decent knowledge on firearms?
No.
Man, why do you think that is?
Misinformation.
Same here. What do you think could be done to make them more educated?
An unbiased media.
Same here too.
But we all know that's not going to happen.
Oh no.
And that's unfortunate. Where I am, the range does these corporate shoots, they call them, and we get workplaces that come out and we introduce them to firearms and we get them shooting. We have them shoot clays, we have them shoot targets, pistols, rifles, shotguns, everything. And we try to get them involved. And the amount of people who thought, well, I didn't think it did that, or I thought it worked differently, that I've talked to, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So there are these stereotypes that people believe about firearms, and until they actually have them in their hands, they, who are they to know better?
Of course, who's going to tell them? Do you think it would change, like, voting wise? Do you think that would make it any better? You think it would,
Well,
if more people did that, like they just experimented, do you think it would help more
I
vote
think
more pro people in?
I think if people understood what it's like to fire a firearm and actually understood what who the firearms license people are, that we're not just a bunch of redneck, no offense, crazy
No
people who
good?
stand in
You all
their
good?
backyard and shoot full auto or something like that. That's a lot of people's depictions of firearms owners. If they
Hmm.
actually understood about how responsible New Zealand firearms owner in general are, and the safety measures that New Zealand firearm only owners in general have to ensure that their firearms are protected and safe out of the hands of children, out of the hands of criminals, then people I think would have a different perception of who firearms owners are and how responsible we are, so that if if the new Arms Act amendment was to come to a referendum, I think if people had a better understanding, then it could quite possibly be overruled, hypothetically, if that was ever to happen.
Hmm. Like, you think that would it would have kept it from passing, or do you think it still would have passed?
Well, the public didn't even get a choice.
They just shoved it
Public,
through.
the public didn't get a say on the law. I think the parliament just shoved it through. We got a 48-hour. We got told we had a 48-hour opportunity to write submissions to parliament before they made a decision, and then it got changed to about 30 hours.
Wow, they just shoved it through.
So they didn't have the public say in it.
She
Didn't
was actually boasting about that, how she got it done so fast. Like, she was coming over here and boasting about that.
I remember that, and and I remember watching. There was something how we should follow Jacinda Ardern's footsteps and ban guns in America. Um, and she was on she was on French TV or something, and she was
She was
saying,
on. You ever seen Colbert? That
no,
that weird dude with glasses. Even though it sounds like me.
I think I have seen. I think I did see that one.
Yeah, she was on there when she actually visited New Zealand. One of his episodes, and that was all he could talk about the entire time for whatever reason. Like, there's nothing else to talk about for some reason.
And she was saying how um she just can't understand the mindset of the American people who have these firearms, and they really don't need them, and they should give it up for public safety. And I remember one of the pages I follow on Instagram just absolutely ripping into her for not knowing anything about American culture, if because she said something like that. Um,
Well,
you
she's
know how
just I don't know what to say about her. She's just I feel like she's bucking for higher office. I think that's what she's doing. She's
I mean, if you look at how she treated COVID-19, I mean that's just so. I was where we had the first case come in, and she talked about it in the media, and she says we need to be careful. We need to make sure that if you have the symptoms, stay at home. That's all well and good. But then we had her come out and say she had this four-level plan that she was going to initiate in New Zealand. And level one was pretty much at normal. Level two, there was some restrictions with international travel. Level three, there was restriction of international and domestic travel. Um, People weren't supposed to go to work. There was a one in, one out policy for, we call them dairies, but you probably call them like corner stores.
yeah, the
Um,
bodegos if you're in the certain cities.
and you weren't supposed to sit down at restaurants. You're not supposed to go to restaurants or cafes or bakeries and stuff like that. You had to pre-order it and pick it up, and that was basically how it went. There was some delivery services going, and you still weren't supposed to travel. And then we had level four, where everything except for like supermarkets and petrol stations was shut. They were forced to close. They weren't allowed to open. So we had thousands and thousands of people losing their jobs over it.
It's the
And
same here too.
but she claimed it was for public safety, and if it was for public safety, that's all well and good. But there has been talk about leaked documents, which I can either confirm or deny, since it's just talk of it,
No
saying that
problem.
she was talking to other members of parliament about how she wanted New Zealand to stay in level 3 or 4 lockdown, 3 or 2 lockdown for 2 years.
What? How are you supposed to have an economy after that?
You don't.
Is that by they doing it on purpose? Do you think?
Well,
Oh, we don't have to answer that. I'm sorry. They don't answer that.
if you can't, sorry, if you can't go and vote, then who stays in power?
They're doing the same thing here. We had Maxine Waters. She was pretty much coming out and saying we got to keep everything locked down so everybody can rely on the government. That was, yeah, man, I don't know, man.
I can't find the article from Google. I'll have to go.
Just bring it up later. I guess let's move on to the next question, if you're okay with it.
Yep.
What kind of parties do you guys have there, and what does it take to pass a law?
So we do have a few parties that seem to be doing all right. So we have a hunters and shooters party, what is it? The shooters and fishers party over here, which are pro gun, pro fishing, those sort of people. So there's that party here, which represents a majority of people. They don't hold any seats at the moment. We've got the Liberals, which is Labour, and
I hear that's poison.
and we have the New Conservative Party and the ACT Party. So the ACT Party seems to be doing good work when it comes to firearm owners' rights. So we have somebody called David Seymour who's in the ACT Party, and he seems to have spoken out quite a bit about how the government's pushing through laws without talking to the New Zealand people, and that there really should be more transparency in the government, and that the government is just trying to push these laws through, and it's not really helping anyone. So he's talked quite a bit and been quite outspoken about that, which is good. And we have the New Conservative Party, who is quite pro-gun as well. And then you've got the Greens.
And they're poison too.
And we've got the Maori Party. And in New Zealand, the Maoris have their own separate election.
Really?
So the Maoris can choose to be in a general election or in their own Maori election. And
who are those are the tribal people? Is that who that is?
The indigenous tribal people. And
I was right.
And the idea of that is to keep a certain percentage of Parliament Maori. So take that how you will.
Of course. Did you guys, have you always, I guess don't take this the wrong way, have you always had a crazy socialist government? Have you ever had a conservative ran government?
We've had better governments. The best form of government, in my opinion, is good king. But the problem with that type of government is the good king dies, which often leads to having a bad king eventually. You look through history, and that's happened all over the place. So with every government, there will be, I say, bad people or people who have a different type of agenda than what everybody likes. We have had much more conservative governments in the past, with people who understand gun rights a bit more. But I'm only a new Kiwi. I've only been in New Zealand for 4 years, so the only Prime Minister I've really had is Jacinda.
How do you pronounce her name?
Jacinda Ardern.
Jacinda Ardern. Okay. I just call her that crazy socialist woman. I don't remember her name. I don't waste my. I don't waste my head with useless knowledge like that. So I guess, do you know much about her? Can you go into who she is? Who this woman is? Because all I've seen is videos of this woman praising socialism. I don't want to judge her, but that kind of leaves me in a bad taste in my mouth.
Yes, that's fair enough. So without getting into specifics, there are claims that she has praised socialism. There are claims that she doesn't um, want transparency in government. There are claims that she doesn't care and that she's only doing it all for power. Um,
Could be describe all
these, these,
politicians.
these are all hypothetical claims,
Of course,
of
absolutely.
course. So there was
Yeah.
something that was interesting is that Winston Peters, which is a member of parliament here, he's the Minister of Foreign Affairs in New Zealand. He came out saying that immigrants, workers, struggling immigrant workers, this is a quote from the New Zealand Herald, Winston Peters tells struggling migrant workers, you should probably go home. So that talks about where we probably are going as an economy. So they want migrants out so New Zealand people might actually have a chance of getting work later on. And you were
Which is
talking
what we
before
should probably be doing over here.
you were talking before about how the new laws gave police power to conduct warrantless searches.
Yes, I'd be like more interested. Like I feel like they just make like from what I'm reading. Like I don't know if you follow the Kiwi Gun blog on Facebook,
Yes, I do. I
and pretty
haven't
much
been on
the
Facebook in a while, but
so it's pretty much a lot of the gist of what I'm reading off of there is pretty much like they just make stuff up. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like I don't know. I don't really know much about it. I can't really go into detail, but I'm just repeating like what I've read on there.
so the police have been given some powers to conduct warrantless searches, and that's mostly for people who they believe have breached the new COVID-19 rules. Which there is you were talking about how can we sue the government before. There is a court case going of somebody who is bringing up the fact that the new COVID-19 rules go against New Zealand laws.
Hmm.
So there is that going in the background. There's not much in the media about it,
Of
so
course.
it's very hard to try and find information. But a couple of ideas that I've heard from some people that I've talked to, they believe that even though it's not right, that it is quite possible that the government will change laws to make them in the right.
All right. So I guess you want to move on to the next question, or do you want to add more to this? Oh, actually, could you go into more into who this woman, the Jacinda Ardern, who what was her political career before she was prime minister? Like, was she a mayor? Was she city council member? Like, who was she?
You were talking before that you don't fill your mind with useless facts, so I'll bring it up on Wikipedia.
My viewers
Um,
might want to know, so that's why I'm
yeah,
asking.
that's fine. So she became prime minister in 2017, and she became the leader of the Labour Party in March. They say unanimously as elected as the deputy
Hmm.
leader of the Labour Party in March, with 5 months before the election was due.
Hmm.
Um, the Labour leader Andrew Little resigned
Hmm.
after low opinion polling. So Ardern was placed leader of the Labour Party in his place, which meant that when Labour won the election in 2017, she became prime minister,
Hmm. So she was just given that seat.
pretty much. So,
International Union of Socialist Youth. Oof.
so Jacinda started her political career in 2008.
Yeah, I saw that.
She was number 20 on the list, and then she bumped up from 2013 5 to 1.
Hmm.
So she's been Labour the whole way through. she's never been an independent, or she's never been a conservative.
No, of course not.
She's always been Labour.
Well, she describes herself as what, a Democrat, socialist, social
Yes.
democrat, and progressive.
Yes.
Okay. All right. It's enough about her. I'm enough of her for one day. Thank you.
Elected president of the International Union of Socialist Youth. So
Yeah, I saw that earlier, and I was just like, oh man.
yes.
She actually was a Mormon, wasn't she? Is that true?
Yes, she was a Mormon. But I can't
She's
remember.
been to. She ever been to Salt Lake City?
I can't remember if she got thrown out or if she
Okay.
left. But she's no longer a Mormon.
Okay. Has she ever been to Salt Lake City? I know they have a lot of Mormons there,
No,
and that's where they're
no,
headquartered out of.
no
All
idea.
right. That's enough about her. Let's move on to the next topic. Do you feel like this is the plan of all the recent laws? Like, is this, you feel like this is the plan just to outlaw everything, or do you feel like it was to make things safer?
Absolutely. As I was saying before, there is that clause in the law where they can just ban something by order of council.
Canada can do that. That's the same thing.
So I believe that was deliberately placed there. So if at any time they could ban a new type of firearm, and I wouldn't be surprised if Labour won this year's election. Let's hope not. Hopefully that she'll get voted out. But if she gets left in, it is quite possible that there will be more and more restrictions.
Like registration and everything.
Yeah, there was talk of registration, but that hasn't gone through yet. I think there was a lot of safety concerns, especially with the leaks that I was talking about before.
Well, that doesn't exactly bring confidence.
No, it doesn't. So there is talk of people wanting to set up a independent firearms council who would be in
It
charge
should.
of licensing and vetting and stuff like that, which I think would be a good idea. I think the police have bitten off more than they can chew, really. Yeah. I mean, when I did my vetting, they come to your house, they inspect where your safe is, and they sit down with whoever lives in your house, which was my parents at the time. And so they chat with your parents to make sure that you're not acting up at home, and they ask about your personal relationships and stuff like this to make sure you're not not a domestic abuser. And they go and they talk to a reference that you've put down as well. And they go and they talk to them about you as well.
Who are the
So
references? Are they all family or are they like friends?
so they have to be. They can't be family. They have to be someone who knows you well.
It's actually going to the process of obtaining. Why don't you just talk to me like, about what process did you go through?
Yeah. So you apply for the license. You hand in a bunch of paperwork. You pay an application fee of $120 something. And so the police come out to your home. They run a criminal background check. They talk to your family. They talk to a reference that you put down. So mine wasn't was a school teacher of mine, who's known me, since I started the school there. So that's the way we did it. There are a lot of other ways to go about it. It could just be a family friend, but you need somebody who knows your character well. That's what the form says. And from that, they can deem whether or not you're a fit and proper person. But obviously, as we all know, it's not a perfect system, as what happened in Christchurch.
Yeah. I don't think you want to go into that, so I'm not going to ask anything relating to that. So I guess what are the other steps besides the questionnaire? Like, is there like a training or anything like that, or is it just...
When I got my firearms license, I had to go to a safety course, which was run by the New Zealand Mountain Safety Council, and they go through what do they call it, the seven rules of firearm safety. So they say that you need to treat every firearm as loaded always point firearm in safe directions, load a firearm only when you're ready to shoot, identify your target beyond all doubt, check firing zones, store ammunition and firearms safely, and avoid alcohol and drugs when handling firearms. So those are the 7 points that they really push through when you go to the safety seminar, and then you do a multiple choice test, and you've got to score a certain percentage, and they give you a little certificate, and you've got to take that certificate with you to the police when you hand in your application.
What is the process of obtaining a firearm? Like, is there waiting periods? How does that work?
You walk into the store, you chat to the person in the store just about what firearm you want. You find the firearm you want, you take it to the counter, you show them your firearms license, they write down your name in the book. That they just write the model and your name in the book. So basically, that in the next few days, you go out and there's been a shooting, and the police can say, "Do you know anyone who's purchased this type of firearm?" So that's that there. But there's no waiting. You walk in, you pay for it, you walk out.
So there's no waiting period. Like I know in Australia, you have to wait a certain amount of time. You have to have like a certain license for each and every one that you buy. How does that the same way works in New Zealand?
So I've got an A category, so I can buy all types of ammunition. So in Australia, you have to have a license for a certain firearm for you to be able to buy that type of ammunition. But that's different over here. You can just walk into the shop and you just show them your license and you pay for it and you walk out.
Okay. So there's no waiting periods or any of that?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm surprised by that.
If you want to buy ammunition or firearms online, you have to fill out a mail order form, which is run by the police, where you get the details of the person who's selling it and you put your details down and the type of firearm and all of that. And you take that to the police station, and it goes to, we have an arms officer in each region who's in charge of the firearms and stuff, and she will either approve it or decline it and then ship it off to the person who's listed as the seller.
So who is it like websites from here? Can you buy from guns
Yes.
online from here?
Yeah. From
Like
America,
ammo, sorry. You buy like ammo, have it shipped to there, or
yeah, we can do that. It's easier to do it from within New Zealand. Obviously, you can do it from overseas, but you need to do like import permits and stuff like that, and it's quite expensive. So there's not a whole lot of point in doing that. Yeah, but you can just go online. So the website that I brought up before was Gun City. Gun City is the biggest firearm store actually in the world. And that's in New Zealand. They've got 7 branches, and they do have an online store. You can buy it all online. Lost audio again.
so I could buy something from there if I wanted to.
You can. Good luck getting it there.
Yeah.
Yes, but if you're within New Zealand, you can just buy them online.
Okay.
And we've got our version of Craigslist. We call
Oh,
it
okay.
Tradie over here. And you can buy firearms and ammunition on that, but you do need a firearms license, and you need to put your firearms license in before you can even bid.
So you can see that.
Yeah, that's the Gun City website there. Yes.
All right. See what kind of stuff. Here's the ammunition. Maybe I'll buy some right now. I don't know they're gonna ship to me, but here we go. Okay. Very neat.
Yeah, so you can buy all that online. We do have an issue with the couriers with firearms, and couriers are being very picky at the moment with whether or not they will deliver firearms or not. So it depends on whether or not they can have a reliable courier to deliver the firearms if we
Okay.
can't get it shipped from them.
So you're better off just going physically and buying it than ordering it online right now.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's plenty of gun stores around. There's a gun store 2 minutes down the road from
Sorry,
me.
broke. You,
I think there's a connection issue somewhere. Can you hear me now?
there you're good. I don't know if it's on my end or what.
This must be some sort of internet connection. There's a bit of lag.
Okay, well I guess let's So I guess we went into the process of obtaining a firearm legally. So is that like the entire process? You want to go into any more onto it, or you want to move on?
That's pretty much it. You just go in,
That's pretty much it.
insert a license. They write down a make and model. What's interesting is with air rifles over here, you don't need a firearms license to buy them. You just have to be over 18.
Australia does, right?
Australia, you do need a firearms license to buy them. Yes.
You can't have airsoft there either. Can you have that in New
Yeah,
Zealand?
we can have airsoft here. We can have airsoft in New Zealand, not in Australia.
How does that work?
You, yeah, don't know.
Do you have what kind of handguns can you have there? Like, is there a handgun roster? Like, what you can and can't have? Like, what are the limitations of what kind of a handgun you can own?
As far as I'm aware, there is none. Just whatever
Okay.
we can get into the country, we can buy.
Okay.
There's no like caliber limit or anything like that.
There's no like barrel length or any of that.
No.
I'm asking because I know in Canada they had to have all these, like to the Glock 19, they had to modify the slide a little bit, and the PPK is not legal there because it's too small. Or that's why I'm asking, because I was just wondering if you guys have that sort of thing.
No, to my knowledge, there's nothing like that in place. So there is a length that a pistol has to be under before it becomes considered a rifle.
The same here.
Yes. So and if it's you can't have, well, you can have like the pistol carbine converters. But as long as when it's permanent, it becomes and can be meant to be fired from the shoulder, then it becomes a rifle.
Mm-hmm. The same here.
Yeah, I know America's got some weird classifications, but I do
Well,
believe
the
New
ATF
Zealand
just makes
ones
stuff up.
I do believe the New Zealand ones are a little bit more logical, thankfully.
Well, it's just because the ATF just keeps making everything up. That's why I keep asking about, does the police make stuff up? Because ours does. They make
Yeah,
stuff
well,
up around here.
in the law, there's nothing about fully semi-automatic ghost guns, so
Can you have unserialized firearms there, or is that not legal?
can we have what, sorry?
Unserialized ghost guns, are those legal or not?
Well, considering that there's no registration for the firearm, I'm assuming so. Apart from pistols, you're supposed to you need to have if it's a restricted one that's registered with the police, you will need to have the serial number on that for identification purposes. But I have an old 1943 old British 303 that doesn't have a serial number. It's an old military rifle. The serial number just does, you can't see it. It's been worn off.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no real law against it.
Yeah, it's the same here.
When it's just a general firearm.
Okay, very cool, very interesting. So I guess let's go into the next one. What are the legal limitations for a firearm?
So I was saying before, you can't have a firearm for self-defense.
Yeah.
That's completely illegal in New Zealand. So the only approved applications for firearm is for hunting, pest control, or target shooting.
Ah, man, it sucks. I guess let's go into actually the rules of my next question. What are the self-defense? I know that my guns are not okay, but what are the self-defense laws?
So in New Zealand, it's illegal to carry a knife over a certain blade length, and that's this, and like spring-loaded knives are illegal. And the reasoning behind that is so you can't, in the spur of the moment, just go and stab someone. Um, but the only way you can possess a knife in a public place is if you have a lawful and proper purpose for you to possess that item. So if it's a tool of your trade, then you can have it. So if you're a farmer, you have a knife in your pocket for when you're doing work on the farm, or if you're a butcher or something like that, and you have it on your belt. Stuff like that, it's all legal, but you have to have a lawful and proper purpose for you to have a knife in your possession.
So I'm guessing you don't have like concealed You don't have concealed carry there.
No, not allowed to conceal carry. When you have if you have a
Damn.
pistol, you're only allowed to have that out on a range, or if you're cleaning it at home. Not allowed it in public, and if you're transporting in public, it has to be in a locked box. So when carrying a firearm in public, you have to again have the law says you have to have a lawful and proper purpose for you to have that firearm. So if you are hunting on public land, we have public land which we can hunt on over here.
Dead.
It's all good. So yeah, so you can carry it on public land with your hunting. You have to have permits for your hunting, but you can't just walk down the street with one.
So you can't like do a pull in Michigan and just walk in with your. Oh man, come on! Put Janisa or whatever her name is.
There was a case that happened a while ago. There was a hunter coming back from his hunt, and he had his rifle on his back seat, and he needed to use the bathroom, so he pulled over and used one of the public toilets on the side of the road, sort of thing, and he had the rifle in his car. So you're not
Oh,
supposed to leave your rifle unattended or a firearm unattended in the car, but you're not allowed to carry it in a public place. So you're a bit stuck if you need to pull over and go to the bathroom because you can't carry it out in public, but you can't leave it in your car either.
huh. I have to think about that. You're right.
So he was while he was in the bathroom, the police came past, looked in his window, and saw the rifle, and they all got scared, and he ended up getting arrested. He had his license taken away, and there was a whole big court case. It took a number of years before he actually won the case and got his firearms license back.
Jeez. So I'm actually at the go. What is the history of gun control in New Zealand? Like, what are the different laws that have you guys had passed?
Well, there was a time where you didn't need a firearms license in New Zealand to have firearms. It was just a time where everyone had a firearm. Every household, every household had some sort of firearm. Eventually, they came in. I don't know the exact years, but they introduced the licensing, and the rules got stricter and stricter as they added endorsements. So, if with the different pistol or rifle endorsements and stuff like that, that got more stricter as time progressed. And they've added rules about vetting later on as well. And the rules about having a pistol is you have to be a member of a range that got introduced as well. And then recently, last year, we had the biggest change, which was the banning of all military style semi-automatic rifles.
Man, I don't
So
know.
there's some things where we have more freedoms than the American people,
Well,
but in more
suppressors,
ways,
man.
you guys have it less restrictive than we do. Even though there is a lot of background checks and waiting periods, you guys do have access to more types of firearms than we do.
Not all states have waiting periods. It's only like California, New York, Connecticut, Washington. There's a lot of states like Texas and Oklahoma. There is none of that. You have open carry.
Pretty much all of the blue states are like that, and you've got the red
Yeah,
states.
yeah, yeah. I live in a blue state, so I should know.
All that fun.
So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of states where you have what's called permitless carry, so where you don't need a concealed carry or concealed
Yeah,
permit to
Texas has that,
concealed.
doesn't it? Is Texas like that?
No, Texas does not have that. Nope.
No.
They're not as programmed as everyone thinks they are.
Yeah, it must be just a Western conception.
Yeah, I know it's not.
Conception. Yeah.
No, it's true. They're not as pro-gun as everyone wants to think they are.
Interesting.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry. You got.
It's a southern perception of what we think Texas is.
Yes, yes. I mean, and it's just unfortunate. I don't know if you're aware of who Bloomberg is. They're looking to change that into a blue state. So I don't know if you've been hearing about that. So no, unfortunately, it's. I think it's them in Arizona. They're being targeted right now by Bloomberg and all the other cronies. So next question: do Kiwis believe that their government will protect them?
It again comes down to what type of people you talk to. There are a lot of people who believe that the government won't protect them, and there are a lot of people who think the government is the best government in the world and will do everything to
course.
fight for people. So it all depends on who you ask. So are you talking about with as in self-defense against like a war or something, or are you talking about just freedoms and rights and restrictions and stuff like that?
Just more self-defense. Like, are you gonna like, can the government protect you from someone breaking into your house and stuff like that? I don't want to go into the extreme. Just more to base something basic like that.
Well, we really are heavily reliant on the police in New Zealand if something like that happens. I mean, if you hypothetically, if you did have your firearm out and you were cleaning it, or you were about to go out for a hunt and somebody broke into your house, and you did end up using that, but you didn't, and you did end up protecting yourself, even though it's frowned upon. Technically, that would be still legal, but it all depends on the threat level, the level of threat. So if it was a deadly threat, and you, for whatever reason, legal reason, had your firearm on you at the time, then by all means you are technically able to defend yourself, but you are unable to carry anything to defend yourself.
So you're just restricted to a knife, is it? Like, you carry a pepper spray, taser, or any of that?
Nothing, can't carry any of that. That's all illegal in New Zealand.
Hear that. So I guess let's go into the next question. How much of the second does Kiwis want to know? Like, do they want a Second Amendment? Do they know about it? Would they want one?
I know a lot of people who would. I know a lot of people who wouldn't. I know a lot of people who believe that the government, as I was saying before, is the best government in the world, and we should just keep that government forever. So they believe there's no real need for it. It depends, as I was saying before, there are some people who think the government is fine. There are some people who think the government is tyrannical. So if you ask those people would probably love to have a Second Amendment that they could use. Though not saying that violence is the answer to all of these things, but to have some sort of protection if the government did become tyrannical and started restricting people's rights. A lot of people would like that security, whether or not it's by arming yourselves or for whatever other means. There are people who I believe, would like to have that for themselves.
Of course. That's the whole point why we have the Second Amendment, is to protect ourselves from the government. But, well, unfortunately, I hate saying this, but I don't think you guys ever will bring a Second Amendment. Unfortunately, I would like to think you will, but
it definitely won't happen.
So I guess let's go on to the next question. What do Kiwis think of the USA and gun ownership? This is probably
It's again on who you're asking, but if you ask most gun enthusiasts, they are envious. But if you ask a member who's anti-gun, they would think that you're all crazy and ridiculous for even thinking of having a firearm. So I believe that the majority of licensed firearm owners would be glad if they could have access to some of the things that you have, because it's a fun sport to be able to enjoy for us Kiwis. So there people would be envious about USA gun ownership. I mean, you see videos of people who have their vaults and they've got rows and rows and rows of ARs or AKs and things like that, and pistols and that. And I think there are people who'd be envious of something like that, to be able to own something like that.
hopefully I don't know what to say. I mean, hopefully it will last in this country, but it just feels like the way it's going here, we're going to be in your guys' position pretty soon, unfortunately. But
Depends how this election goes for you.
we'll see. Who knows? We may wind up with either a talk show host for president or a creepy pedophile child molester.
Winfrey.
I don't know where she went. You noticed I've been asking the same thing. Where'd that woman go? Where'd she go?
Thought she was going to change America for the better.
No, that's what they all say. That's what Obama was supposed to do. I don't feel any change. Hey, back in the last question. What would the future bring for firearms ownership in New Zealand? And do you think you'll get any stricter or more lenient?
I think we'll definitely get more strict. The only way we'll get more lenient is if we get a good government change. I don't think it'll ever go back to the way it used to be pre 2019. But it could get better. There is still hope for us there. It all just depends on who wins this election for us, I suppose, or the election afterwards. But there was already restrictions in place for firearms license holders. There was a massive waiting time to get licenses, and even there have been restrictions on me. You know, I've put in mail order forms to get ammunition shipped to me, and the police will just deny my request because I didn't put information that they want, which they're not privy to. So in that way, it is likely to get more stricter, but there is still a possibility that we'll get a bit more lenient with the laws. So yeah, I suppose there's probably not too much you can do unless you can convince our lovely leader, Jacinda Ardern, to change her mind on some things, which probably will not happen. But from that perspective, probably not a whole lot you guys can do. Just when a Kiwi comes out to the United States, and if they wanna try things out, if you guys could be a bit more inviting to us to allow us to come out and shoot some new toys, and I'm sure a lot of Kiwis would
course.
appreciate that. I'm sure that's.
I know. Have you ever seen Iraq Veteran 8888?
Yes.
Yeah, I know that's a good event. If you ever get the chance to, you should go down to Georgia and shoot full autos and everything. He has a really good event.
Full auto
Mhm.
Fridays, eh?
Or Las Vegas, if you're ever in Vegas and you want to go do some gambling, you can pop on by and shoot some full auto. So
It'll be an interesting experience, that's for sure.
yeah. All right. Well, we should do this again. Is there a social media anywhere where any people can get in contact with you?
No, I'm quite a simple person. I don't really have any public forums, so no, just subscribe to Black Rifle TV is all I can really say.
I appreciate that. Well, I guess that pretty much does it, guys. If you have any questions, we're gonna have to do this again. I mean, there's a lot to talk about in New Zealand. Bring him back on and talk more. If you guys have any questions, please leave it in the comments below and subscribe and like and do all that and share if you like what you've seen. All right, guys. Thank you. Take care.